Good morning. Warm welcome from AMDISA to the participants, both online as well as in person. We will start the proceedings now because I think people will still keep rolling in due course. So may I request the panelists, Professor A.H. Kalru, Dr. Ram Mohan Rao, Dr. Rajan Saxena, Professor Prab, to come on to the dais, please. So we'll start the proceedings. I am Ramakrishna, Executive Director, AMDISA. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this Quality Assurance SAQS program seminar on accreditation quality. We have put together a very experienced and senior academic administrators on the panel with multiple accreditation systems experience and who will be able to initiate and lead the give some direction and focus to the nature of the discussion that we expect to ensue. With this, Dr. Ram Mohan Rao, former Dean ISB, is on the extreme left. Next to him is Professor A.H. Kalru, former Dean IIM Ahmedabad and the Director of IIM Kozhikode. And next to him we have Professor Dr. Abdul Rab. He is Vice Chancellor of International University of Business, Agriculture and Technology, Dhaka, Bangladesh. And then Professor Rajan Saxena, former Vice Chancellor, NMIMS University. All of them have very diverse and multiple accreditation experiences, and I'm sure you'll find them valuable. And I'm quite sure that the participants who have registered today, we have a pretty good registration, but typical of our own environment, we have people possibly rolling in after the due time is on. So that much.
ये बैठे हुए सारे बाबे कुछ नहीं होता मैं आपका ये हमारा पहले प्रेसिडेंट ये अब प्रेसिडेंट
Our president, AMDISA, unfortunately could not come. Professor Abdul Momen, the director of Institute of Business Administration, Dhaka. He is very much available online. I would now request Professor Momen to welcome the participants and also open the seminar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramakrishnan. It's actually a great honor to be here amongst this lot of luminaries present in the dais and also joined online. I welcome you all to this seminar on the quality assurance. As has been already mentioned, that this is going to highlight the experience of a lot of these very experienced professionals who have been associated with quality assurance systems, in evaluating them, in mentoring them, and how this quality assurance is actually important in this day and age, and how this how the SAQS system works and how it is comparable with other international systems that are being offered by other organizations across the world, which has been recognized by the Indian authorities very recently. And I'm sure we will be all very enlightened after today's seminar on the overall quality assurance system and also how the SAQS quality assurance system works and what are the various steps involved in it and how it's going to help individual organizations, institutions in their goals to achieve their goals, and how we can collaborate and cooperate amongst us. So it is needless to mention there are tremendous amount of advantages of being an accredited institution. There is a continuous evaluation that is there. We get to know where we stand and where, if there is any strengths or weaknesses, where we need to work on, and how the areas where we need to put our emphasis and areas where we have enough strengths that we can capitalize on. So, and also how a third party evaluation, points out things that, as an internal, we don't get to see. So at IBA, we recently went through this process, and we are the first Bangladeshi business school to have a SAQS accreditation. And I was very much involved in the process, and I saw how it actually helped us to see where we need to tighten our belts, where we need to, work on, and what were our advantages. So it was a very eye-opening exercise that we have had. So I think each of us who are here, present here, if we are trying to also get accredited, this will be of immense benefit to us. So I leave it here, and I want to express my gratitude to all of them who are present here, and especially those the panelists who are presenting their experiences and who will be enlightening us. Thank you so very much for being here and allowing me this opportunity to say a few words in this occasion. We'll start the proceedings now. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mavin. I now request Professor Kalro, who is the chairman of the tax committee also, to introduce the team and also take over the proceedings as the moderator from here on. Dr. Kalro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramakrishnan. First of all, very good morning to everybody present here and also present virtually for this particular event. When Mr. Ramakrishna asked me about organizing an event related to accreditation, along with the meeting of the executive board of AMDISA, we were wanting to understand what is it that we want to essentially discuss, talk about. And all this was motivated by the fact that for some time now, there has been a great amount of attention being paid, discussion on, and some controversy as well, related to accreditation and the agencies which are providing this accreditation to institutions. And I'm, of course, talking about only management institutions. Because accreditations are important to talk of many other contexts, be it technology, institutions, be it organizations in industry, be it hospitals, and so on. And I have heard people ask me, why should we go through it? What benefit will I get if I participate in the accreditation process? I mean, of course, the institution. And why is accreditation of A more helpful and useful to us than accreditation granted by B? In fact, some of our own governing body members, executive board members, keep on making references to ACCREDITATION doing this and SAQS doing that. Maybe people have a greater amount of, and we use the word, expectation from securing ACCREDITATION accreditation as compared to, let us say, the National Board of Accreditation, NBA, and so on. So at first, I mentioned that, look, I think the basic issue we have to resolve is going through accreditation, or is accreditation a choice at all? You may have choices to make in terms of whom you want to go for accreditation, but is accreditation a choice? And this has been put into much sharper focus now in the Indian context by the NEP 2020. Because as you are aware, the ultimate objective is to improve the delivery of higher education. And in that process, one of the essentials that the NEP 2020 is making reference to is autonomy for institutions. And sadly, we have all kinds of experiences in India. For the present moment, I'm basing my observations on India, where people want autonomy, and when they have it, they don't use it with responsibility and accountability to their stakeholders, which is very important. But they want autonomy. So some basic conditions were put down by the policymakers on what had to happen or what was required, what was the eligibility to be considered for autonomy. And one of the instances was on the need to be accredited. And in India, they said either NBA or NAT with what they call as grade A. Because they both operate on a point system and need a certain number of points to fall into grade A. And they refined it further and said if you have grade A plus, that some more processes would be waived in order to consider institution for accreditation. And if you had A double plus, then you could get it right across the board. And in a sense, because of the pursuit of the recommendations of NEP 2020 and the insistence of both the government of India and some states, not all, on the implementation of this policy, there has been some kind of influence at work on institutions to participate in accreditation. Sometimes with a little bit of fear also, I don't know why, but they want to go through the process. And they are, of course, satisfied by and large if they just get accreditation. The duration doesn't matter. They tell me clearly, we must get 3-year accreditation in the context of AMDISA or in the context of SAQS and so on. But when we were talking about this, we said, maybe this is not something which will really help us to bring out some of the important issues we want to highlight about the process of accreditation and why accreditation, if we are to do justice to really contributing to setting better and higher standards of quality, not just higher education, but in management education. So in the process of discussion, I suggested that let us keep the theme as accreditation the soul of quality. And soul, by the way, I want to clarify, S-O-U. Could have put the other one also. I'm saying this in a little bit of a jovial manner because that also has something on the stronger the soul, the more input we will due to the soul. Correct? But this is the S-O-U-L. And some people, through Ramakrishna, nobody called me directly. Said, Hari, what is this? What are you wanting to put emphasis on? Why have you used this theme? So I said, you all are experts on accreditation. You have been mentors of institutions. You have been leaders of institutions. You have been members of our PRTs in the context of SAQS. Some of us are also involved with the National Board of Accreditation in India. Some of us are involved with National Accreditation Assessment Council. In fact, both Dr. Rammohan Rao and I have and continue to have a strong association with both NAC and NBA. So we said, let us give freedom to the speakers to interpret this the way they want, but in the process enlighten us about why accreditation, how, and what kind of changes, if any, we require in the system. We will get it. And the question is not really at this point of time whether we need accreditation at all. And I'm sure none of the speakers are going to make a reference, but this was the starting point. I will, of course, myself share with you some individual thoughts on the use of the word so. But I expect more contribution to really emerge in the debate and the dialogue as we throw open the discussion with the audience. You may agree, you may disagree, you may accept, you may not accept, you may modify. But at least we hope that we, in the process, will develop a better understanding of accreditation process, and more particularly in the context of SAQS, and how it impacts institutions as we do that. So that basically is the introductory observation that I want to make. I will request each of our distinguished panelists to make a short presentation. We have actually allowed 10 minutes. And I don't know whether that is enough or not. Because I have another thought to share and an experience. We say that if you give a professor, and by the way, everybody here is a professor, okay? If you give a professor an opportunity to speak, they forget the clock. And in IIM Ahmedabad, we had actually a rule, a policy which said, classes must begin on time. We gave no such assurance about their country. So the only thing which enabled a class to get over within reasonable limits of the specified time was the fact that there was somebody else waiting to get in for the next class. But if your class happened to be the last one of the day, then we should say, Lord, have mercy on the students. But here also I want to mention, this 10-minute deadline is not a hard deadline. And every few extra minutes that my distinguished colleagues will take, they're all friends of mine, I will try to reduce my content so that you are not kept away from the main discussion. So thank you very much for being present here today. And having come here, implicitly agreed to share your knowledge, your take on this theme. Welcome and thank you very much. First speaker, I have to request colleague, dear friend, Dr. Abdul Ram. He, as you all know, is from Bangladesh. He has myriad experience working with several institutions. And when I got to know him first, he was the director of the IDA Dhaka. And IDA Dhaka came into existence along with IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Calcutta, and of course IDA Karachi, because of the very strong role and influence of the Ford Foundation in bringing quality management education to India. I think the year was somewhere around 1990, so we known each other for years. Over to Professor Ram now. Of course, I want to add, he's been the Vice Chancellor of two universities in Bangladesh and leading not just management education, but other fields as well. So thank you.
Professor Gandhar. As you know, professors feel more comfortable to stand up and speak. Okay, so my colleague, Professor Gandhar, did it, and I thought it would be later. Let me start with a little background of the accreditation issues in this subcontinent. For years, the business schools did not really bother about accreditation. Institutes like IIM or IBA Karachi or IBA Dhaka or many other very well-known institutions, they felt that they do not need accreditation. As long as they are getting quality students, their graduates are getting jobs, so why bother for anything else? But as we look now, many institutions of high repute are now trying to get accreditation of WCSB, SAQS, or ACCREDITATIon or others. The phenomenon is not only in the subcontinent, but also in other Asian countries too. Now, my association with the accreditation process started from the very beginning when we designed SAQS as one of the 16 trainees who were initially trained by EFMB of Europe, Belgium, to say introduce SAQS. So there was a series of rigorous training on how to design, how to conduct, and how to complete the process of accreditation. And the first institute that I went to for accreditation process was ICFI Business School of Hyderabad. So I was one of the four team members, and one was from EFMB. And that's the way we started, You see, the complacency with the quality should not be there at all. No. We all know that quality does not happen automatically. You have to set a target. You have to plan. You have to implement the plan. You have to measure. You have to compare and see if any corrective actions are needed. Well, the same process we follow in the accreditation. Now, because of the number of institutions providing business degrees in India, Bangladesh, or other sub-countries have proliferated, and many of them are not really providing the right quality of education that is needed. So one thing is that competition has increased. And one reason for the motivation to go for accreditation is to meet the competition by telling that we are accredited. So more and more schools are coming up for accreditation process. So what does accreditation really do? Actually, the process makes the institution, first of all, conscious about themselves. That the self-assessment report that is prepared as the most important and starting report, that helps the institute to look at its strengths and weaknesses, look at the opportunities and threats, looks also at the I would say quality control process itself, and then they come up with a need to improve. And that process helps them eventually to enhance the quality of their education. Now, what SAQS actually do is to help institutions to encourage them to look at their own things, go for a self-assessment. They would also assist by engaging a mentor if you really need one. So their guidance would help the self-assessment report preparing team to look more thoroughly, look around and prepare a better report. Preparation report is not a guarantee that the accreditation will be received. As you find out your weaknesses, the institution itself understands where they have to improve, and they engage in improving those areas. Now, from my experience as mentor, and also member of the PRD team for several institutions, I found that the process for an institution may take much longer. For example, I was mentor of a business school in Kathmandu. So they found out that the process is hanging for the last 5 years. So what they discovered that many of the things that has to be there are not there. So for example, about the faculty. And it's time consuming to build up a faculty complement in, say, Bangladesh or Nepal, where there's serious shortage of faculty members, particularly PhDs. And there are regulations of the controlling agencies like University Grants Commission, Ministry of Education, others, who also sometimes pose a bottleneck that you have to do these things and that things and so on. Until you do it, you do not go for anything else. Now that has happened with this kind of government school. The government is saying they must first get the UGC's quality certification before you move for others. No, they held back. And in another case, a business school in Bangladesh, where I started as a mentor, the administration was a bottleneck itself. I mean, the dean of business school was enthusiastic about getting the SAQS accreditation. He went through the process to a great extent. And Professor Kauter was also a mentor there. But once the dean was transferred or has taken job elsewhere, the process fell apart. And then, as I said, the top management, Dr. Kauter actually met all the important board members, including the chairman of the university of that business school. And we hope that they would understand the importance of it. Unfortunately, Vice Chancellor changed, and he felt that an American accreditation would be better. So he insisted on ACBSP instead of SAQS. The process was sent to the cold storage. And again, what happened? The former dean rejoined, took up the issue, took the process further, and unfortunately, once again, the same thing has happened. You know, it is not always the good wishes of the school or its team. There are other constraints also, apart from the weaknesses that the university of the school has. So it is no good that you submit the self-assessment report and expect that they will be approving it, and you know already these are the weaknesses that you have. So you may take some time to make it up. And that is where, I mean, the quality control quality issues come in. The SAQS accreditation process is actually a sort of consulting or consultancy service. They help you, the peer review team or the mentor, they help you find out where deficiencies there, how to make it up, and they would expect that you would be able to make it up. So quality, as you see, is a matter of, first of all, the mindset that we would like to improve, and then taking actions, relevant actions. Now, in the process, what I have seen, those who are involved in the preparation of SAR, they also get trained. I mean, by preparing in the process of preparing the report, they learn a lot of things. So their capability also increases. And so also because in some respect, almost all the teachers will be involved in some way or other. So they also get an idea of what is quality and how to improve it. So a sort of consciousness grown among the faculty, among the administration, other things regarding the need for equality improvement. And the other issue that happens is the continuous quality improvement. Even though you get such accreditation, the team would recommend some measures that would further improve. Now, SAQS objective is to help you improve, not to refuse your accreditation. Okay? So that is what the difference is from other accreditation agencies. We understand our South Asian problems better than others. But that is where we are different. You know, European, American, others have been insisting that you should have, say, 80% PhD faculty and others. You must have that much international students and others. Well, but look at the reality here. Can we expect even the top business schools in some countries to receive students from America, Australia, Europe, or others? But we can get students from neighboring countries. We can get faculty members. We can send our students for exposure to our neighboring countries, of course, to other countries in Japan or Singapore or say other countries of Europe. It's possible, and many are doing it, you know. So, and each institution has certain peculiarity of its own. Some major constraints that cannot be surmounted by just telling them do it. So, Dr. Kaup actually addressed this issue yesterday, that you need to look at the institution and its constraining environment or others. So, for example, we expect that when an institution has been accredited, they should not feel satisfied that you have got it, so the process is over. What we would expect that the accreditation should be doing much better than what it did when the accreditation was given. So Dr. Rajan Saxon and myself was visiting a business school in Delhi who have applied for re-accreditation. And our question was that, yes, you met the standard, the same standard that you have met in the first time. But we expect that you would be doing better because, you see, that is the minimum standard for accreditation. So there should be further improvement, better quality and so on, so that you can compete better, so that you can claim that we are a better institution than others. So we emphasize that continuous quality improvement should be taking place even after accreditation. And that is why we say that accreditation is the soul of quality. My time is over? Okay, all right. We would be expecting your feedback, your contribution to this discussion. We are talking from our perspectives as peer review team members or mentors or from the SAQS representative. But we would expect that you should be able to talk from your side. What are your observations or constraints or whatever it is? Okay. So I'll bring another issue. More recently, I said in Bangladesh, it has been done or it is being pursued for the last 3 years or 4 years. And that is introduction of outcome-based education. Already, I found that in many business schools in India, they are following it. Some of them in the process of introducing it. I'm sure this is a good approach to address the quality issue. And you might have already noticed that there is a shift in the philosophy of higher education. Traditionally, we thought higher education is for knowledge acquisition, knowledge creation, and knowledge dissemination. Now, what would happen to the society or others who are not a major concern? Those who are familiar with outcome-based education, we know they would like to make the education relevant to the needs of the society. I'm talking particularly business school. Okay? Now, traditionally, we would expect that the business graduates should be contributing to earn more profit for the organization. But we say now, no, not only that. You have an ethical responsibility, you have a responsibility to society, and so on. So this outcome education emphasizes on what the students will be able to do after graduation for the employer. Okay? Not just that he knows certain things. So it has become more skill focused. Okay? And the teachers are facing challenges. No more are the days when the professor would walk into class, he speaks for an hour, whatever he wants to share with the students and come out. Now, we are talking of a plan. What are you going to talk about in the class? What are you going to skill you are going to teach them? And at the end of the class, you must ensure that they have been able to take away certain things. And what are they, and have they been able to do it? So the quality issues are focused in this outcome education. And it will be good if the schools adopt this one as early as possible. That will help them also in the accreditation process. The other issues are already aware of, that the business education has done tremendous change within this COVID period. One thing is sure, business education is not just marketing, production, or other things. Now the technology, information technology is taking over even some business courses and so on. And as you know, this AI is becoming a serious challenge for us, for the education institutions. So if ChatGPT can provide a report in 3 minutes, okay, and the student can just making minor corrections, can submit the report to the teacher for evaluation, what is going to happen? We still don't know how we're going to address these issues. I mean, ordinary plagiarism checking software won't be able to check it and so on. So the quality challenges are coming up. We are talking of fourth industrial revolution. Business schools must be prepared. We have not really included these issues in our assessment, but we'll certainly be looking forward to see that the challenges that are being provided by the industry board are also taken care of in the courses and curricula of business schools. Well, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be able to share my ideas with you. Now the mic is over to our moderator.
Thank you, Professor Ram. I will not attempt to try and summarize what you have said. That happened much. I request Professor Raman Rao to take over now.
Very good morning to all of you. First of all, my apologies. I'll have to sit down and talk. Unfortunately, I have a leg problem. I should have realized as I walked in that, people always, when I go to seminars, they ask me to sit down and talk. I always prefer to stand and talk. But there's a podium usually, and I can do that. But there's no podium here. If I had realized, I would have probably bugged Ramakrishna to get a podium over, but it was too late. So you have to put up with me talking for sitting down. So sorry about that. When you have so many speakers, the original list was about 7, I think. Now down to 5 or something. And also time was given was 15 minutes, now cut down to 10 minutes. I think my good friend Ramak thinks that if you give 10 minutes, then people will end up talking at 15 anyway. So make it 10 minutes. But when you have so many speakers, I always wonder what you should be talking, because you don't want to be repeating unless you happen to be the first one in the picking order. You can tell what you want. But if you happen to be somewhere around and everybody else has said something, then you are. So my thought was, should I call them up and find out what they're talking? I did that in one meeting, and then one of the speakers came and said, "Oh, sorry, I changed my mind. I'm going to talk about something else," and so on. So when people keep changing their minds, you still have a problem. So I try to take a guess what nobody would most likely not say. So that is how I prepared my talk. My guess is that they covered that, but I hope it's still appropriate. Can I have the, please, as the time is short, I'll skip this, most of it, and I will make the presentation available. Next slide, please. Okay. I've organized a talk to talk about the elements of an institute which are required, what is accreditation is all about generally, and talk about quality parameters. The way you look at different accreditation, the quality parameters remain almost the same, might be the different names and so on. And I want to talk a little bit about ratings and rankings and best practices and concluding remarks. Best practices is a fairly long presentation. I'll skip some of that. I'll view a shortage of time, but you'll have the presentation to those who want it. Please. So you have an institute director, faculty, students, alumni, staff, and recruiters are not really part of the institute, but they're important stakeholders, you might say. What is accreditation all about? Accreditation is a stamp of quality assurance. So we forget what is the definition of quality. Traditional definition refers to conformance to specification. So you could have different specifications and conformance can be. So we confuse accreditation with quality, the level of quality. Quality assurance, whatever your specifications are, you are delivering. So you might be a Maruti, you have some specifications and deliver that. It's a good quality. You may be a Mercedes, you have some other specifications and you deliver that. So accreditation does not give you level of quality. So you might talk about levels of quality you want. If you say message is better than in some sense, in terms of total overall quality, better than, because you pay much higher price than say Maruti and so on. But accreditation really refers to conformance specifications. And of course, the specifications have to be reasonable and not you can't say just I will be a school that will just get students from the neighborhood and run an institute and so on. I want to be accredited and I will conform to my specification. Specification has to be reasonable and should be acceptable. You cannot have very too limited restrictions. So specifications, of course, will result in the various programs and activities to be given. Specifications, of course, stem from the vision and mission statements of the institute. This is important. People forget, and people don't want to, the vision and mission. Sometimes people have very high mission statement, but what they do does not really correspond. Everybody wants to be the top in the best in the world class institute. Now, what are you doing to be world class institute is an issue. So I remember in ISB also we had an issue. Research is my favorite topic because people don't really understand what they talk about research and so on. But, the best thing I like about ACCREDITATION is once they had a definition of research. They just said research in 3 categories. First category is discipline-oriented, whether finance research, marketing research, and so on, where you publish in top-tier refereed journals. Second is more pedagogical type of research, case studies, and you are writing books, monographs, and so on, more related to teaching. And the third is consulting, problem solving, and so on. 3 types of research. People always get confused, and at ISB we had this issue. The vision statement said do cutting edge research. Now, cutting edge research means you have to publish in top tier journals and so on, which of course very few people read. The number of people reading these journals. Everybody knows that, but still you say your vision is that. And we were publishing and so on. So one of the board members came to me and said, what is the use of publishing in all of this? Very few people read and so on. I said, yeah, you're absolutely right. But the vision statement says that. So why not you try and change the vision mission statement? That was the end of it. Never tried to change that. So we all want big visions and missions, but we don't want to do the what that corresponds to. So if you want, you have to be very careful how you want your institute to be, not just say bombastic things and not do what is related to it. I think that's very important. So what is won't imply again? People have asked me in the past, especially AACSB. You look at the list of institutions that are accredited by AACSB. You have some top institute, top in some rankings, and the 50th, 100th, or 200th institute also accredited. So what is this? Accreditation does not mean the level of quality. Okay, and that's what I want to stress that. People forget that. Next one. So in terms of what are the elements of accreditation, governance is first an issue. I'll run through this quickly because I'm sure Amar is looking at me and saying already time is cutting. Okay, so governance is one, and the next one is. So I come from the background of operations management, so I tend to look at institutes as having some inputs, processing, and outputs. So inputs are students, participants in executives program. Processing is your programs, activities, curriculum, faculty do the processing, and administrative support help in the processing, and so on. And of course, you have facilities to do this processing, library, computers, laboratories, classrooms, and so on. These are all various parameters in terms of accreditation. They look at all these because these are what enable you to deliver what you are promised. Okay. And the graduating students, participant output is that, and research publication, books. So you look at different accrediting agencies, the parameters are more or less the same. They may combine it differently, they may view it differently. But overall parameters are the same. They're not any different. And these are the type of parameters they look at. The wording may be different and the combinations may be different and so on. So ratings and rankings are different in the sense, ratings and they put you in class 1 or class 2 or class 3 as superior quality. And rankings, of course, you have newspapers and so on get into rankings. See, we all like rankings. You say, okay, India cricket team is good. Is Indian cricket team number 1 and number 2? There's number 3 or what? We all want to know which is the ranking. But problem with all these rankings is it's a multidimensional problem. You look at cricket, you have T20, one-day matches, and you have test matches. Of course, they never realize you can't have an overall ranking. So they have a ranking for each category. T20, which is the top team, which is the top team in one day, which is the top team in tests and so on. And also, you look at the way the measurement issues are there, even in institutes. The measurement is, you look at test matches, they played over 2 years and different players play different surfaces and so on. But still, we like to say, this time Australia beat us, and Australia is the #1 test team. But if you say the league, Australia, India, and a few other teams are in the same league, say, okay, who is #1, you'll ask. So that is a problem with that. That's why newspapers, they take advantage of this and they come up with the rankings and so on. And I think too much emphasis on rankings is not a good idea. And skip most of these best practices because related to this, I'll have this available. Just go to the last slide. This one. Okay. One point I want to bring out, which people don't realize, that's parameter evaluation. There are various parameters I talked about, qualitative some, as opposed to the accreditation, NBA, NAC, and all. They're all numbers oriented. They have give scores for each, and the weighted scores and so on is a final number that they arrive at, and then they say whether you're accredited or not accredited, or accredited for 3 years. The international agencies generally have much more subjective evaluation and accreditation based on subjectivity. And this is an issue when I was in the All India Board of Management Studies, at that time, and they still do, I think, some marks for each of the categories. Say, for instance, research, 200 marks or something they had. Okay, fine. But they won't stop at that, but they would say research means publications in top tier journals, refereed journals, 50 points, case studies, 50. And so I said, why don't you just keep 200, give the flexibility to the peer review team. One institute may be very good in developing cases, so they may get more. But if they can't get more than 50 points because that's all what's allotted for cases. They may not be doing anything. And when I told them, they said, Professor, you don't understand. If we give flexibility to the peer review team, we'll have a lot of court cases. So that is a problem in India. We are worried about court cases, but then we don't want to give flexibility to the peer review team. Whereas the qualitative nature will always give more flexibility to the peer. Now, so the difference between international accreditations are more qualitative, and I think quantitative is always better, which is not as a misnomer. I like this quote attributed to Albert Einstein, which says, sometimes what counts cannot be counted. What can be counted does not count. So I think you should keep that in mind, because you don't go overall for number. I'm myself a quantitative person, but numbers and things don't tell you the complete picture. You have to have some qualitative things and so on. So finally, I will close with this. I know Amar is looking at me and for taking too much time. I'll close with this statement that attributed to Professor U.R. Rao. I don't know how many of you remember what space like it. Apparently, he went to meet the then Prime Minister, Professor Narasimha Rao, and he was waiting. Narasimha Rao came and said, "What is it you want?" So he started slowly and so on. And President Mr. Narasimha Rao said, "I have a cabinet meeting to attend. What is it you want?" I just have 5 minutes, but you are, I was just continuing. So finally, Narasimha Rao got up and said, I have to go now. You tell me what you want. He said, "Sir, we professors may be slow to start, but once we start, we cannot stop." So but I will stop. Thank you, Ram. Particularly the last. Actually, Dr. Christoph Terras has joined us online, and the mission of the Saxena, we will request Dr. Christoph to share his thoughts with us. Dr. Christoph, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I would like to extend a very warm good morning. It's good morning in France to all the colleagues, to all the friends, all the acquaintances from the SAQS accreditation. You know that at EFMD we had the honor of being associated with SAQS from its very start and from its design process. And this is a great success. This is a great initiative that we do closely follow from Brussels and from other offices. We are also delighted to be of help, to be of support if the need occurs. So that being said, I thank you for inviting me to this conference. What I would like to share with you, and I will try soon to share my screen, is which are the new trends that we see here in Brussels, but also in ACSB for the accreditation. You know that the world is changing, the schools are changing as well. So we try to mirror that in our accreditation. If the host can enable my screen sharing. Thank you. I should be able to share my screen, and I hope you can see it. Yes, I see that it appears, the wonders of technology. So what I would like to show you is that we have, as the FMD, one of the leading network in business education, one of the 3 internationally recognized accreditation. We have quite a lot increase on portfolio of accreditation to meet the needs and to meet the demand. You have here a couple of numbers that pops on the screen showing all the different type of accreditation, where I would like to point out your attention. You all know ACCREDITATION, which is the institutional accreditation. EFMD accredited is a program accreditation that we use to call EPAS, and that has been rebranded. We also have EDAF, which is a mentoring process, and I invite any school in India to candidate to participate in this initiative, because it's an initiative which is targeted for our non-European members, which is a mentoring to guide them for the accreditation. And we have 2 new accreditation, which is EOCS. EOCS is the accreditation for online education, which obviously has been boosted by the COVID pandemics 2 years back. And we have another thriving accreditation accreditation, which is more a benchmark than accreditation, which is the evaluation of impact, and which is called BSIS, Business School Impact System. So you see, rather than one unique accreditation, the world of business school is asking a portfolio of services to be able to start by program accreditation, get some mentoring, apply some specificities for the online courses, and above all, measure its impact to be able to qualify for ACCREDITATION. And this should be seen as a global, logical, multi-dimensional portfolio rather than one accreditation. But back to the basis, what I would like to show with you, to discuss with you, is that now we have been thoroughly focusing on teaching and on research. Now what we see is that what we call the third mission, the university extension, the services to the community, do take more and more importance, whether in the life of the school itself and in the accreditation as well. So I would like to discuss that with you. The third mission, I'm not discounting the importance and the fundamental importance of research and teaching, research to create the knowledge, teaching to impart the knowledge. But what I want to discuss with you is the growing importance, the growing recognition of this third mission, this university extension, to establish links with the school environment, and doing so, of course, avoiding the ivory tower syndrome that was so problematic in some business schools. Sorry. Also, what we want to show is that the third mission is also one way to avoid the criticism of the bad business school not contributing to the society. We all remember the financial crisis of the 2009 and all the accusation of the models imparted by the business school that led to this disaster, where a third mission, services to the community, is obviously to get this criticism. I would like also to insist on the United Nations development goals, which are more and more taken into account. And this is a good thing by the business school. They are done by research, they are done by teaching, but they are also put into practice by the third mission of the institution. Of course, the impact and this, what I just been saying, is important, and this is done through the business school. Another thing as well, why the third mission is getting more and more importance, is that in Europe, at least, many business schools are facing some financial problems. They are facing some problems of tuition fees. They are facing some problems of getting some funding by the state, by the authorities, and doing some services to the community, contributing to the local, to the regional, and to the national development is obviously one good reason to point out when asking for financial support from the stakeholders, and in first place from the state. As you know that in Europe, at least, many business schools are still funded public or semi-public, and depends. And here I would like to share with you some of the new trends that promote the third mission in the accreditation. So look at the two models that you are familiar with. Of course, coming from EFMD, I can tell you that the model on your right hand is much dearer to my heart than the model on the left hand. On the left hand, you have the standard model of ACSB, and you have the standards of ACSB that appears on the red. And you see that the third mission is taken into account into many different aspects of both accreditation, whether ACCREDITATION or ACSB accredited. And I put it the stars to point out, to highlight where third mission is evaluated in the accreditation process. and in particular, obviously, under social impact. So when we go back to accreditation, obviously, we have to realize that on top of teaching and research standards, there are some criteria, there are some screening of what is the third mission and the university extension. And the third mission is evaluated according to the same logic, to the same philosophy, meaning that it is strategy driven. And the third mission cannot be an independent aspect of the school life. On the contrary, it must align to the goals of the school. There must be a clear vision. There must be some long-term objectives. There must be some monitoring process with a continuous evaluation. And it is, as in all accreditation, SAQS, no exception, data supported. So it's not a declaration, it is something that we can prove, that we can demonstrate. And as for teaching and research, the institution must demonstrate the institutional and the stakeholders' engagement in favor of this third mission and services to the community. Just look as it is highlighted in the standards. We go to ACSB standard, impact of scholarship. It is highlighted that the schools need to have societal impact. It is highlighted that the school needs to be needs to make a difference, to address significant issues, whether local, whether regional, or whether international. It needs to be demonstrated when applying for the accreditation. And again, let me point out, let me remind to the distinguished audience that this is also directly linked with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I copied from ACSB possible impact, business development, financial performance, business creation, shaping community debate, engaging with non-academic stakeholders, and so on and so on. As you see, there is not one standard way of doing it, but many avenues that can be explored to demonstrate the quality and the impact of the university third mission. Go to ACCREDITATION. This time here again, it's presented in a different way. It's highlighted in a different way, but the logic remains the same. The school needs to contribute to its environment with teaching, with research, but also with what we call the community outreach. So again and again, and this, you can take my word, that this is taking more and more importance. We can not only evaluate a school, a business schools, a university on the quality of its research, whether it is applied or theoretical research, and on the quality of its teaching. We need to take into account its community outreach, its contribution to the community through other services, which means through this third mission. Again, you have some aspects that I highlighted. We need to engage with the communities. We need to have impact, and this impact, of course, is proteiform. We have impact on knowledge, meaning all the non-degrees courses, all the courses to the non-student communities. This can be cultural services, this can be social services, this can be economic services, exploitation of innovation, exploitation of patents, and so on and so on. You see there are many dimensions, but all this is part of the third mission. All this drives the schools to the accreditation. When we see the assessment criteria, it also mirrors here. This is for the third criteria, how the practice impact the schools, and so on and so on. I will go quicker on that as my time is running down. What we need to realize, though, that the impact, whether of the third mission and assessment, we need to realize that impact is long-term. So you cannot demonstrate impact for the day after, but you need a long-term perspectives. It's complicated to demonstrate impact because the relationship is sometimes not linear can be some mediating aspects and so on. The impact, the further we go, the less control by the institution. Is not under always direct control of the institution, which makes it difficult to measure, which makes it difficult to quantify. But whatever the approach you choose for going to the accreditation, this impact assessment is data-driven and is and must appear in the accreditation report. Needs to be balanced, national, international, and local. Needs to demonstrate the relevance, whether the relevance of the problems, whether the three missions of the universities in the local communities needs to be communicated, and it needs to be shared. So with this, I conclude this very short presentation. I would like to summarize 3 points. I mean, third mission is more and more taking some importance, should be explained and should be taken into account more and more prominently in the accreditation process. This is already what ACSB, what EFMD are doing. Third mission is just as the other dimension of the quality research and teaching. It is mission driven, meaning that it must align with the goals of the university. And then we need to realize that the impact of the institution is essential for its accreditation, but needs to be, again, data supported, measured in the long term, and put and carefully screened by the auditors. And to share with you at a concluding thought, what is third mission? Basically, it is to bring different people into the universities, not only faculty and students, and it is to bring the business schools to other communities outside of its traditional campus. So keep in mind that this third mission that is taken into account in the accreditation is the summarizing point of all the impact of the business schools on all its communities and on all its stakeholders. And with concluding thoughts, I thank you for your invitation and will be at your disposal during the panel session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christophe. Happy that you also brought in the extra dimension of what are the changes taking place in the accreditation systems and processes. I now request Dr. Rajan Saxena for this presentation. And of course, I mentioned this 10-12 minutes.
Good afternoon to all of you. I have been, after listening to all my distinguished earlier speakers over here on the panel, and somebody who joined online, Christophe, who joined online. And today, wiser than when I walked into this room. And Dr. Calvo, as usual, triggered the thought when he was talking about the topic, the theme, the soul of quality. And I started wondering that, what is truly this, what are truly the qualities of the soul? I start from there. This is the soul of the human being. What is truly the quality of it? Because ultimately, institutions are like a human being. They're like a human being. And therefore, from that point of view, I looked at it. I said, what are the kind of things that clearly defines the soul of all of us is that it is the purest form of our body itself, in our body. All the impurities that we have really belongs to us as the body and not to the soul. That's one thing which is very important. And the second is that the soul in me is the soul in you too. You know, all of us have the same soul. So there's universality, which is, and it defines and it powers us. The most important thing is it powers us. Let's just turn on to the institution. And when we look at it as to what is truly speaking, that is driving the institution. What is it that drives the institution? What is it that drives the management school? Because accreditation is nothing but trying to understand the institution. That is the important part to me. All the parameters that Ramon talked about, which are well defined in our SAQS manual, which are also well defined in ACCREDITATION or SAQS or in AMBA or even in NBA today, or NAC today. I think they just remain the parameters. And one of our recent visit to an institution for accreditation purposes, Dr. Rav was with me and Professor Som was also with me in that. So that when you start looking at the report, when you start reading the report, and when you start looking at the annexures and everything, all looks good. But then when you start getting insight within the institution, you start uncovering what are the challenges that the institution are having, and whether the processes which truly define the institution are. Heart of an institution is the process. If the processes have been defined, they have been defined. Then you go further and then you start further probing. And then you realize that there's somewhere something is missing. And the consequent impact of that was visible on things like cohort quality, for example. What is the quality of work that you are getting? The quality of the curriculum that is there. The quality of the pedagogy that is there. The quality of the student development that is there. The quality of assessments that is there. And so on and on and on. And many a time in this whole process of understanding the institution, Dr. Rao and so on raised the question, should we really re-accredit the institution? Now that would have been too drastic. So he said, no. Are we focusing on negatives? Are we so much focused on negatives? Let's not. Let's shift our mind. Let's shift our gears. Let's start looking at the positives, the strengths of the institution. Because all institutions have the strengths. So we started focusing on the strengths of the institution. Difficult as they were, given the fact that earlier our orientation was somewhere else, ultimately we as human beings, we were also having the difficulties trying to shift the gear. But finally, we were able to find some of those kinds of positives that are there. Ladies and gentlemen, my mind goes back as I was looking at this institution. Personally, I was looking at it, and every day in the evening as I would drive back to my home, I would ponder over the day and ask the question, is truly MBA education all about employability? Is it all about placement only? Because the general perception of the society is that if my child gets an MBA, then he is sure of a job. I think that is such a fundamentally wrong assumption of the society. And business schools and the media are to be blamed for building up such a kind of a perception that an MBA is equal to placement. This has shifted the gear of the institution from learning to training. So it became more and more like a training institution. Where is the learning? And when the learning is not there, be rest assured the quality is compromised. They're going to be compromised. Because the basic value, the core value of an institution, education, is nothing but learning. Learning. Are you able to create a transformative learning experience for the student? That is critical. And unfortunately, somewhere or the other, that get missed out. And to my mind, for all this, there's one person in the institution which we all need to really look at particularly. And that is the leader. If the leader is not passionate about quality, if the leader does not have an eye for the quality, if the leader does not have an eye for the outcomes, if the leader is willing to compromise on the quality, or has a laissez-faire style of leading the institution, I'm afraid we run into institutions. We all have been the institution builders of this country. Wonderful institutions have been developed by Dr. Khan Road, Dr. Rao, Sir Rav in Bangladesh. Well, I've known him right from his days at IBA, Dhaka, currently at IUBT. So my point is that if the leadership is missing, if the leader is not passionate about it, if the leader does not have the vision and the aspirations, institutions stagnate. And as we all know, a water which stagnates stinks. And the same thing, believe me or not, it happens in the case of institutions. The smell of an institution, as you enter the institution, tells you whether this is a quality institution or not. So what is it that ultimately we would all be looking at? We would be looking at the processes. We will be looking at, when you start looking at admission, they say, yeah, we have a great process. What is that process? We admit the students to CAT. So what is the percentile that you admit? 50%, 52%, 60%. We all know what that really means when we start talking about the cohort. They all go through the group discussion process. Everything is fine. On paper, it looks just fine. It looks like any other management statement. But what is the criteria that you have established for admitting the student? How much of this is very into what the recruiters look for when they are coming to you? Have the feedback of the recruiters been discussed in the faculty council? Has the faculty council been able to discuss and say that this is the quality of the student that we should get? This is the kind of a diversity we should have in the class. I think this discussion, when it doesn't happen, in my mind, we have compromised something. There's another part which Christoph was also referring to. And a great learning to me when our business school, NMI business school was in the ACCREDITATION process. And even for our engineering school, when it was in the ABET accreditation process. It was about the impact that as an institution we were having, the innovations that we would have, and the engagement that we had with the society, whether we were engaged with the society or not, or were we a standalone island in Mumbai, disconnected from our environment. And the next thing was, are we really aware about the SDG goals? And therefore, are we as a business school doing anything in that kind of a direction? All of us in the business school started scratching our head, because our minds have never worked in this kind of direction. But obviously, since we had been all there, somewhere or the other, inadvertently or advertently, we were innovating. Our graduates were making an impact, either in the corporate world or in the voluntary organizations. Our Center for Social Enterprise was actively engaged in some of the literacy programs through the Bombay Municipal Corporation, to the women upliftment programs and stuff like that. And we started putting it as an impact. But the challenge was the engagement. And believe me, it was not a very easy exercise trying to build that kind of an engagement model at the business school. Ladies and gentlemen, the business school, to my mind, is more than just simply the management education. So as quality accreditors, we should look at that also, not this, and it's very interesting. We say that the standards don't enable us. I think the standards do enable us. Within the same standards that have been defined by SAQS, and we were looking at it in terms of the criteria satisfaction table sheets and some of those other worksheets that we were all working on. Actually speaking, it was, because as we focused on it, we started realizing that, look, if you are going to be above the standards, or you are going to be above the expectations that the tax would have, then in that case, we need to have the innovation over here. And we need to have the impact assessed over there. So that was the other part that I really wanted to put it across when we start discussing it from a soul perspective. The graduate outcomes therefore becomes extremely critical. Now, people are really the core, right? We all know about it. Institutions are what? It's a bundle. It's a house of talent. What do you do with that? Do you really invest in the talent? Now, this is interesting. An exercise that we did in this institution. We found that of the number of faculty that they had, 60% of the faculty were those who had been with the institution for less than 10 years. And the rest of those who had been between 1 to 3 years among this 60%, well, I think somewhere close to about what? 40, 50% or something like that. So when we started, and they left the institution in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. So we asked the question to the leaders, why? Why do you do it? And the answers were the standard answers. Oh, they get better money, new IIMs, and stuff like that. I said, look, I think there has got to be a much more plausible answer than simply this of getting more money and new IIMs. You're an old institution of this country. Some of the IIMs don't have that kind of just the name only that they have as an IIM, but they don't have anything. Why should they be going there? I said, how much of the time are you investing in the development? And the answer was negative. We asked for the budget for faculty development. They showed us some budget. When we divided it on the basis of per faculty, it was no more than just 1,000 rupees. I put to you a question. If you have this as a talent, and this talent is going to be responsible for creation of quality in the business school, in your graduates, what kind of output can you possibly expect? So I think it is this aspect that also need to be considered. And finally, let me also put it that quality is not a static concept. It is not static. Institutions evolve, and therefore quality processes also evolve. The accreditation is not a stamp. It tells you that you are a quality institution. But again, it is at a given point of time. For the 5 years that we have evaluated you, you have met our standards. But then when you are going for re-accreditation, what have you done to internalize the quality? Did you only work to satisfy the accreditation standards at the time when you were going in for accreditation, but afterwards you just simply slept? So accreditation, you have got the stamp. So after that, there is nothing. It is hard to really find that, and when that is there, you don't find it. It's a painful experience for the accreditor to really explain that, look, please tell us, what have you done? What are the checks and controls that you have had built in your admission process, in your academic systems, in your student development processes, in your alumni processes, in your assessment processes, in your technology development processes, etc., etc. And therefore, I think to my mind, it is the continuous development, as Professor Rav was talking about it, continuous quality improvement. That has to be there at the institution if institution has to continue to be relevant and meaningful to the society itself. So, ladies and gentlemen, if the soul of the institution is processes, the soul of the institution is quality, and the soul in the human body is the purest form, and we all have to continue to do karmas, which will make our soul pure and purer. On a similar basis at the institution, the karma is in terms of continuing to invest in quality people, quality processes, and quality systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rajan, for the analogy that you have drawn on the relevance of the soul in the context of the theme that we have. I guess it's my turn now to share a few thoughts with you. I'm feeling most uncomfortable sitting down talking into the mic. I don't know whether I should stand and use the chair as my podium, but if you permit me, I'll do that, because this discomfort is not so easy to manage. I want to begin by introducing a slightly philosophical perspective. I'm doing that on the basis of something that I jotted down and what I have done. You know, if you are the last speaker, there are many disadvantages. But I would like to focus on the advantages. And the advantages are you get an opportunity to learn from every one of the speakers and factor them into your own presentation. And then it may appear to some that there is substantial enhancement of what we have already done. That clearly is an advantage. A second advantage is when you have disagreements and you can make them very forcefully, and let others decide on which perspective they want to bet or take it to their system. I also know that I have to apply the same standard to myself or requirement that I'm basically allotted only 10 minutes, of which I have already lost 2. So technically only 8 minutes left. But going by what my colleagues have done, if I've given the same liberty, I can extend my talk by a couple of minutes. But I promise you I will be as brief as I can. And I'll also confess to you I'm not known for brevity. However, let me begin with some jottings that I have on what I understand about this. And I'm putting an emphasis on I understand, because I'm not well versed in our scriptures. I'm not properly educated or educated at all. Sanskrit language, and therefore direct reading of some of them which have come down through the ages as contributions to us. And being an educator, I feel I can always take the advantage of adding my interpretation. Because that's what makes the thought perhaps a little original. And you know, I sort of jotted down some of this only this morning, because I knew that somebody is going to ask me, why did you use this word soul? So what is the soul? Swamiji will give us a very good exposure on this from one of our well-known missions in the country, or somebody who's well versed with the teachings and writings of Hinduism. But as I said, I would like to talk about my system. The soul is not a physical part of the human body. But according to me, it represents the spirituality inherent in all of us and is manifested in different forms in different ways. I'm sure you have heard of the term soul music and how it was. Basically, what I'm building on in my expression is from that. So as I said, it represents the spirituality inherent in all of us. I would also like to add that it is an expression of our innermost feelings. It is the driver of our conscience and our inner self, which constantly makes us reflect on the right and wrong. The choice of the action we choose, and above all, the custodian of morality, integrity, and value. The habit we need to inculcate is to develop the art of listening to our inner voice and being driven by it. But I can guarantee you there is not anyone present here who has not experienced our inner voice telling us or asking us to question our choices. No matter how brief that voice is acting, it happens. It happens. We get to know and understand ourselves. So today, whatever I want to talk to you, very briefly, of course, is about inculcating and utilizing our inner voice and being driven by it to the choices we made, which put us on the path of morality, integrity, and I could have added more terms, but I chose not to. And you know, I focused on only these three because I'm one of those few individuals, I think, who likes to draw a distinction between a school of business and a school of management. And I'm saying this with all consciousness. I was less than 30 years old at the Indian Store Management, Ahmedabad. Just 5 years after my PhD. A young associate professor. And we started this debate at our institute. Why should we call our diploma a postgraduate diploma in business administration? But that terminology was borrowed from the Harvard Business School. because the Harvard Business School was a school of business, and the flagship program was the program in business administration. And to this day, even we are using this term, Masters in Business Administration. Fortunately, administration is added to business, otherwise it would have been disaster. According to context of business, school. So we took a conscious decision. And I remember the director was not Mr. Ravi Mathai at that time. The director was Mr. Samuel Paul. He passed away recently. But another great pillar in the growth and development of Hyderabad. And after a lot of introspection, deliberation, he said we'll call it a postgraduate diploma in management. And to this day, that is how it was known till we got the degree granting status as an act of parliament. And when they got the degree granting status as an act of parliament, they unfortunately reverted back to again masters in business, which is a little bit of a travesty in terms of position. It is true that our management schools prepare us to get into the world of business, commerce, and all other organizations which deliver services to society through the practice of business has an important role. But I don't think it's exclusive. And that is why what was mentioned a little while ago, this tragedy of judging schools by what salaries their graduates get is probably one of the most unfortunate things that has happened in the contribution that these schools make to management education and society. Having said that, I hope one of you is keeping my time. Okay. I want to narrate a story to you. And this story is from Phil Crosby, whose name I think everybody here will be familiar with. Because he was an iconic root. This is a very interesting story. And I assure you, I have not made it up, because this is a story he narrates in his book, Quality is Free. And also mentions about it, Quality Without Tears. And is a large part of one of the videos that he was marketing earlier from his School of Quality. Phil Crosby was very, very fond of smoking and drinking. Great drinker and a heavy smoker. And all this took a toll on his heart. So he suffered a very major heart attack. Was lucky to receive medical attention in time. And he survived that. But his doctors, according to him, told him, look, if you do not, this is his language, by the way, not mine. If you do not want to die, you must stop smoking. So he says, in a jiffy, I forgot about smoking and gave it up. Of course, he was in the hospital bed. Giving it up was basically metaphorical at that point of time, but he never smoked after that. So there were times when he thought of switching over from cigarettes to cigars, but he didn't do that either. his recovery was not as smooth as the doctors expected. So his chief physician went back to him and said, you have to stop drinking alcohol. He was allowed to drink non-alcoholic. And that was a severe blow to him. Because he felt that smoking was easier to give up, but consuming whiskey, other alcoholic drinks was a need for him. But he thought, well, I'll try to respect my doctor's wishes and also in that manner prolong doing. And he goes on to narrate that after some time, his daughter got married. And at the marriage ceremony, he had to propose a toast to the couple. And as usual, he headed to the place where there were glasses of champagne. Others had also picked up a glass of champagne and he picked up a glass of champagne and he was about to propose a toast to his daughter and new son-in-law. And he was reminded that he had made a commitment that he would not drink. Then he thought to himself, I have one daughter. She's getting married. She won't be getting married again and again. Of course, he assumed that. She won't be getting married again and again. So it's only once. Let me go ahead. But then, this is his conscience at work. I'm describing this to you in great detail. Then he said, okay, this time it's my daughter's wedding. Next time it will be my wedding anniversary. Third time it will be my child's graduation. Fourth time it will be somebody's birthday. Fifth time it will be something else. And he said, this is a non-ending story. And the interesting part is that none of these are non-repetitive. They happen again and again. And he said, I'm going to have to do this again and again if this is my feeling that it's only once, or these are very special occasions, and exceptions can be made. And he said, look, if I want to be honest to myself, my commitment, my family, my doctors, I will propose this toast not with champagne, but with a glass of water. And that is precisely what he did. He proposed the toast with a glass of water. So now what is the moral of this story is what I want to, which he himself narrates and talks about this in the context of quality. And I'm adding mine. I feel a little sense of responsibility having given you this key to explain why I did that. So I'm mentioning this. Very clearly, it is a matter of discipline. And in his own words, there are no exceptions. And please appreciate that when we talk about quality or we talk about accreditation, it is a matter of the discipline that prevails in our institution with respect to all and any parameters which play a significant role in accreditation of this. discipline, processes, and the fact that there can never be any exceptions. But what do? We make exceptions all the time. And please remember, every time we make an exception, we are planting the seed of degradation. I'm not using a stronger word, but if it keeps on happening continuously, it is the beginning of decay. And this is why in accreditation, we pay so much attention to the discipline that institutions submit themselves to. And this is voluntarily in the pursuit of quality, in respect of all those parameters that play an important role in maintaining and delivering. The two are inseparable. Quality and accreditation is to ensure. And because I'm using the word ensure quality, we rightly say quality assurance. And these are size neutral. Quality assurance and quality per se are size neutral. They are also resource neutral. But not leadership neutral, not value neutral, not morality neutral, okay, and not integrity neutral, which is what we need to ensure that we observe all the time. But unfortunately, the world over, somehow politics and the influence of the political system creeps in. And I want to mention to you that we ourselves are responsible for allowing it, because we expect concessions, we expect exceptions, we expect undue opportunity, that we approach those who have the power to give us this. And then naturally, there is never any free lunch, and we have to keep returning the favors. We learned these lessons very early. In the IAMs also. And I don't know what are the standards today that people follow, but in my cohort, we think without contemporaries as directors of IIM. I could take Dr. Rao also as an associate IIM, because we are all born with the core foundation. Correct? Same thing. Different governments. We had this very strong belief that if you are going to interfere, we are happy to give you our resignation. In fact, I can even recall a meeting. That time Dr. Ram was not there, with another group of 5 of us were there. When then the HRD minister called us and said, look, if you don't follow my instruction, I will dismiss you. So we just told him in one voice, our letters of resignation are ready. I hope you remember that meeting. Okay. So, having talked about discipline and no exceptions, let me very quickly mention. Now, I have not taken the seat. Is that okay? There are these general areas in which we have to be very particular in following the tenets of quality. The context of not just accreditation, but institution building and its growth and development. Forget rankings. I believe what Dr. Ramon Rao said. For a while, we are okay, but we have to ultimately transcend them. You know, nobody from our scriptures talks about who's the number one ranked God. Who's the number one ranked Rishi? Who is the number one ranked author of our religious text? Which one of the Upanishads is ranked number one and which is ranked number two? Let's learn from that. There are lessons there. But which are the broad areas in which we need to focus on and apply our discipline? And by the way, I'm not telling you what choices to make. That is your responsibility and your choice. These relate to teaching, learning. These relate to knowledge generation and its application. These relate to promoting entrepreneurship. Remember, it is the engine which drives all growth and development, including social. We must pay utmost attention to innovation in various forms. And lastly, in this list of important items, and this was very much emphasized by Dr. Christoph, which I expand to state, and which we do, by the way, in the NBA, NAC, in SAQS. We call it as contribution to community and sustainability. You make your choices. But having made those choices, follow them. And if you have to change choices, if you want to change how you interpret some of those things, be sure that they are consistent with the purpose for which you exist. Paramount, the purpose for which you exist. So I will like to conclude by this one observation. Accreditation is not a certificate of receipt. Please do put up this certificate in your office for everyone to see. SAQS accredited. But please also see yourself every time, every day, and remind yourself that this is a reminder of your responsibility and accountability to maintaining and delivering indeed. Thank you. Now have the pleasure of throwing this discussion open to all of you to make your observations. I will only request that when you do speak, please identify yourself. Address not only the people sitting here, but the entire. Thank you very much, and I will pass on the mic to you all.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible now.
Thank you, sir. Professor Muhammad Abdul Momen, President, Mr. Ramakrishna, Executive Director, Professor Kalru, Moderator, and SAQS Committee Chairman, distinguished panelists, and distinguished participants. Quality plays a fundamental role in accreditation, whether it is in AACSB or AMDISA or NAC, quality is with respect to what? Quality is with respect to not just only teaching and research, but infrastructure, student activities, placements, governance, student excellence, SDG goals, etc., as mentioned by the distinguished participants. The second point is accreditation signifies that a school meets established quality benchmarks and demonstrates, as just now Professor T.S.R.K. Rao said, continuous improvement. I think this is the greatest benefit of getting accreditation. Accreditation places emphasis on stakeholder satisfaction, that is students, faculty, employers, alumni. Now, this is a two-way relationship. Accreditation enhances the reputation and credibility of the institution. It indicates that the school meets high standards of quality and is committed to excellence in education. The recognition of accreditation, whether it is AACSB, whether it is AMDISA or NAC with high grade, helps get school can get better quality of students, better quality of faculty, and better quality of employers for placement. Thus, quality helps in accreditation and accreditation helps in quality. Now, the accreditation ensures, as some distinguished members mentioned, ensures that the schools remain responsive to changing market dynamics, industry demands, societal needs, technology changes, and government policies. Now, technology changes are incorporated by introducing new courses in the technology, as well as incorporating technology in administration, teaching, research, examinations. But more important is government policies, and I'm happy that Professor Kalro, in his initial remarks, and Professor T.S.R.K. Rao just a while ago have mentioned about NEP. NEP was cleared by the Union Cabinet under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister of India in 2020. It's now 3 years. Now, all business schools, there are several business schools who are part of the universities. So they are continuously faced with the problem of how to incorporate the NEP into our curriculum. How to incorporate that into the curriculum. Now, I'll be very brief, sir. Now, what does NEP mean? Number one, multidisciplinarity. Now, how the business schools are going to take into account the multidisciplinarity problem so that the quality is improved. I will not go into the details. Any questions I will answer. Number two, Indian knowledge system. Now, as per the UGC rules, which we receive communication, all vice chancellors know that 5% of the total credit should go to the Indian knowledge system, and 50% of the credits going to the Indian knowledge system should be as a part of the main area. Now, the question for us in accreditation is, how do we incorporate this into our curriculum so that our quality improves? I think that's a challenge we have to face. Now, number three, credit from other institutions. Other institutions, now the credit is given not only by this institution, but the credit is given by SWAYAM courses. As you all know, 40% of the credits can be taken through SWAYAM. So how do we get the best quality of incorporating this clause in NEP into our business school? Finally, I'll just last point, sir, I would like to say, now, the PhD regulations have changed. Now the regulation is that you can go for 2 subjects for PhD. Now, for one subject, at 16 years, we have been working at ICFI to maintain high quality. There are 6 participants from IFHE who are participating in this. Now, as the rule says, you can go for 2 subjects simultaneously to do PhD. This is a big challenge. How do we incorporate this challenge into our business schools so that we maintain high quality? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. Ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. C.S. Reddy from IT. Well, I have a question to the
panelist, Professor Saxena. We all understand as academicians and academic leaders, accreditation is the soul of quality, and key stakeholders like students and alumni who underwent programs with academic institutions, they also appreciate accreditation is the soul of quality. Another key stakeholder is corporates. It takes little effort from our end to explain to them what ACSB is or what SAQS is, what NBA is. So what is that collectively we can do to sensitize corporates that accreditation, be it ACSB, equals or NBA, is soul of quality? So my question is to Professor Saxena. Thank you.
I think I think to my mind, you don't have to be telling the corporate about the accreditation. If you do want to talk about it, please do talk about the accreditation. But I think what speaks about you as a quality, that is critical. If the corporate that works within your company, within your campus, feels and smells quality in the graduates also, in the faculty, in the overall ambience, then I think the purpose of accreditation has been achieved. That's what it is. The difficulty is that many a time, unfortunately, what ranking, I refer to that. The ranking, the whole exercise that has happened, and the media that has really played this role, I call it that many a time a villain's role, showing up all this kind of a rank. One is above this, the second is another institution is below this. I think to my mind, this is of a least consequence. What is significant is the quality of the institution. And I think the strength of the institution is that quality. And if that is what is visible, if that is what is felt, then I think the purpose of accreditation you have achieved. Then, you're talking about it as to what has been the contribution of accreditation to you. Dr. Kalro referred to the discipline, for example. The extent to which, the discipline came within the institution on several counts, that I think becomes critical. I draw upon, for example, the ACCREDITATION. It talks about the AOL, for example, the assurance of learning. The discipline that I saw in business school coming in was phenomenal. And the assessment, my examination center, how the whole process changed. So this then started getting reflected. And therefore, even the quality of placement of our business school went up, the roles went up, the quality of the companies that were coming in, that went up, everything from that kind of perspective.
Sir, can you please come on? Yes. Dr. Pridhar.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the distinguished panel for sharing their wisdom with all of us. Sir, I have been visiting as a member of or as chairman of the peer review team for last 25 years on behalf of NBA, NAC, as well as SAQS. There are some of the criteria, some of the parameters on which many institutions are doing well. But one parameter where I have consistently found that there is weakness, that is faculty research. In faculty research, I have found that sponsored projects are almost lacking. Since I have been going also on behalf of NAC, and in comparison to science and engineering, management stands nowhere. Therefore, we need to, as AMDISA, we need to organize more programs to encourage faculty and help them in knowing how to write the research proposals. Generally, what is happening, I have found that there are publications, but these publications are mostly individual driven. A faculty may be doing it because of his or her own motivation. Leadership in this respect, mostly I have found is lacking. That means if we talk about leadership by example, many directors have stopped doing research. They had done research 12 years back, 15 years back, but then now they are not able to provide leadership so far as the research is concerned. With the result, when they emphasize on research, faculty doesn't take it much seriously because they know that, well, our leader himself is not doing research. Why should we do? But at the same time, now the solution is that our AMDISA as a professional body needs to organize more programs for the deans, directors, faculty, particularly focused on research, so that faculty can apply for sponsored research. Sponsored research is almost lacking in management. With the result, this area is weak. So when we go for accreditation, mostly institutions get very less marks in this area, so far as the faculty part is concerned. So far as faculty development is concerned, again, that is left to the faculty to decide whether one is interested or not. It should be organized so that each and every faculty gets more opportunities to attend faculty development programs and develop himself irrespective of the level. Unfortunately, even today, many of us feel that once we have become professors, so we need not to attend the development program. So we are already developed. It's a wrong notion. Thank you very much, sir.
So I think Mr. Ramakrishna is noting down some of these suggestions, particularly in the context of new programs that are being recommended. But I also would like to suggest that our members should work on these programs with sponsorship from, that's also an alternative.
Thank you. It was lovely hearing all of you, sir. And I think there are a lot of, sir, I am from ICFI Business School. My name is Sitama. And I have a couple of philosophical questions rather than actually something related to this. My first question is to you, Professor Kalro. You brought out the, the meaning of the term soul and why you actually wanted to use that for the title in this entire seminar. And you spoke about Sanskrit readings and referred to Indian knowledge system. I mean, though not explicitly, but though not implicitly, explicitly. So I have not come across the exact term or the exact word referred to as soul in any of the Indian knowledge systems. I don't know if the same is relevant as Atma or Paramatma or what you mean by this term soul, because you refer to that. But the more important thing or the more difficult thing is, how do we operationalize this term? I mean, everything in accreditation is always about numbers, is always about, coming up with some way by means of which we measure it. So if we're talking about the soul of accreditation, how do you ever measure this, sir? How do you talk about quantifying this, even if it's a spiritual term or whatever it is? What is the essence of it if we only refer to it as qualitative? That's the first question, sir. I'll finish the second one so that you can talk about it. The second one, I think I'll address to Professor M.R. Rao, sir. And here I'm talking about, we have so many parallel accreditations. I mean, distinguished colleague, I think Professor Christoph or somebody did mention the Triple Crown and things like that. Now, at the same time, if every school is going for all of these accreditations, are they really necessary? I mean, if one body actually tells us that, you have this quality and we are crediting you? Do we have to continuously go for each one every time? And then some other school tells us, are you triple crown or are you, this kind of a thing? Is there a need for so many accreditations simultaneously for every school to go through? And maybe this is like answered in what Professor T.S. Arkera, mentioned earlier, that we should have another body which actually is, superordinate to all of these to say now that you've done this, this is enough. How is it? I mean, people like me who are in this process of accreditation find that we're always doing this, and it's either one body or the other body or the other body or the other body. And is it really needed, sir? So many bodies.
This is my personal view, of course. See, cricket places, all these accrediting agencies, they're also competing with each other, so they want to sell themselves. And I think the word triple crown came from, the original triple crown was in the horse racing, the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness and the Baltimore one and the New York, 3 of them. So I have a feeling they coined the word triple crown. I don't know who coined the word triple crown here, because they want to sell themselves. Okay. So my personal view is you don't need all 3. One or say you look at the criteria that they're using. If you are satisfied with all enough criteria there, but if one of them is missing some criteria and you're good in that and you want to showcase that, you may go in for another accreditation also. Otherwise, I would say 1 is enough actually. It's basically, my view is you want some external validation of what you are doing. And 1 validation to my mind is enough, as long as it's a good validation, in the sense not somebody, validates. So 1 agency is fine. But if you, as I said, if you find that agency, you're good in something that's, for instance, I would just say case studies, but this accrediting agency doesn't look at case studies at all, let's say, giving as an example. So you may want to go to another one which also showcases your case study, instead you get rated. So it depends upon that, but most of the accrediting agencies consider everything. So to my mind, typically 1 would be enough.
Although the second question was not posed to me, I'm going to say a few things, if you don't mind. First of all, if you are participating in a competition or a race, as Dr. Ramohan Rao mentioned, winning that competition or that race in different contexts has meaning. So I think this example was also given by Ramohan Rao when he talked about cricket. There are so many formats. There is T20, there is a 50 overs limited match, 1 day, there is test cricket, and I'm told that they're looking at other alternatives also, because every new format is coming in just to make more money and provide more opportunity to those who love the game, will pay to watch it. Okay. But when it comes to accreditation, I want to repeat, it is not a competition that one is participating in. And that if you get what they're referring to as the triple crown, you have won all 3. I repeat what I said in my concluding remarks. Accreditation is the beginning of a larger responsibility and accountability that you have. And to continuously remind yourself that you're doing justice to all your stakeholders. And in fact, the importance of re-accreditation comes into play because institutions forget what they have achieved and want to rest on those laurels. The famous proverb is familiarity breeds contempt. But the newer version is not new, it's also quite old. Familiarity breeds comfort. So when we get too comfortable with the situation, we say, okay, we'll wait for it next time. And people say, I will prepare for the next round when there's 1 year to go. Somebody says 6 months to go. But if you're honest to your commitment of purpose and promoting quality, it is a never-ending process. And you know, we must learn from the Japanese, Kaizen, which means tomorrow will be better. And you know, there's a beautiful book which I recommend to everyone to read. It has nothing to do with quality or accreditation. There's a book by Margaret Smith called Tomorrow Will Be Better. Tomorrow will be better. Now, coming back to the first question, I don't think I'm the competent person to answer what you're referring to in terms of our scriptures and the religious texts and so on. But with whatever limited understanding I have, we interpret the word soul in English language as the equivalent of Atman in Sanskrit. But I don't want to take that equivalence, and that is why I said I want to define it the way I look at it. But the soul, I repeat, according to me, is the essence of my existence. And my definition for operationally, I thought was clear, but I will repeat it. It essentially is looking at how a conscience responds to what we are doing. Developing the ability to listen to our conscience in the interest of morality, integrity, and values. And I'm not even saying what your values should be. I'm only saying define them. And define them in such a way that everybody else understands. But you know what we do? Those who have the power to take decisions sometimes themselves are not in agreement on what they want. Okay. Somebody wants to generate money. Somebody wants expansion and money for that purpose. Somebody wants the ability to finance all those expansions and then forget about repayment. Well, we've got all these examples. I'm not inventing anything in our Indian context. But we have to come together to understand what is the purpose of our existence. And that is the first question we ask. Why? 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 And once again, I would like to repeat a very famous Japanese thought on management. Before you take any decision and act on an issue, just ask yourself the question why, not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times. But each time you have answered a why, another why will automatically arise. So maybe even 5 is not enough. But till you are properly convinced about your purpose, then only you need to go ahead. And I also want to, since you are from ICFI and Dr. Mahendra Reddy who posed this question, I want to use this opportunity to inform. Everybody is asking somebody else to show the way. I want to say there is not one way, but many ways, and you decide what is appropriate. And more so in the context of NEP 2020. I don't have time, but I shared my frustration with you. Because I'm a trustee of a well-known trust which runs 7 colleges. And I was also an advisor to one of the largest education societies in Western India, which even today has a corpus of 1,000 crores and is adding on to it by monetizing its land and creating a corpus of 2,000 crores. Everybody says, let's wait for the government to clarify. Is the burden on the government or the burden is on us? Who has the burden? And if we take certain decisions, we must recognize that we are responsible for the consequences. In science, we say that to every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In management, to say with every action, there are consequences. And you decide. And the parallel I like to give to people is in our famous arranged marriage system. I would say more. The answers are becoming longer than the questions. We have to avoid that.
Yeah, my name is Bhaskar Rao. I'm also from ICFI. Sir, couple of reflections we need from the panel here, maybe particularly Professor Kalro. In a context of fast changing technology, particularly in education, and regulatory system that is very dynamic, and people have started imposing impact of education on society. How often the regulators are of the accrediting bodies going to change their standards, which is the optimum, because earlier it was generally 5 years, but I think 5 years is now too long. It should be 3 years or 2 years. And because of accrediting bodies, should the education institutions be burdened with the impact studies and impact interventions? That is getting a bit too much. The focus is getting lost from education to something else. So it will be very nice to hear some reflections from the panel. Thank you.
Whom do you want to respond to this? Your answers from?
Okay, sir. I think Professor Rupp said he has been part of the beginning of this SAQS. It will be interesting to hear from him, and of course from Professor Rajan Saxena.
Okay. Thank you for a very important questions that you have fielded. You know, these issues of sustainable development, impact, etc., is of more recent origin. As you know, the UN emphasized on 17 SDGs, and SDG 4 is on education. Now, the ranking agencies and others also now started emphasizing on the social goals and its achievement and so on. I understand that, say, creating an impact depends on what you have chosen and what you are getting, you know. So now there are many ways, I would say. Let me give you an example. My university, the IUBAT, got a recognition ranking from QS, and that is for creating impact. I'm saying just an example, but it's not the whole thing. So since the beginning of this university way back in 1991, its founder, Dr. Ali Lamyan, he said that the university should be contributing to the social economic development, not just economic development. So he's told that, well, we'll be getting at least one student from every village or ward of the cities, and we will be helping them to graduate and become a professional, but at the same time, we'll be working for the society also. So we would expect that graduate to go back to his, at least be connected with his village, would try to promote the social cause and so on. Well, many students have done it, but not, I would say, a big chunk yet. Now, the university actually gives a lot of financial assistance to those who are meritorious, but cannot afford financing. Even maybe 100% tuition, 100% waiver and so on. In addition, some loans or funding even for their living cost, So some of them come from rural villages, won't have place to stay in the city and so on. Now, what has happened, many of them who would not have the opportunity to have higher education have been able to get the degree, get a good job, and they are placed also good in society. Some of them have tried to do something for their village and so on. Now, it is difficult to measure the impact. But then, as we said in the beginning, it is not just all counting, Certain things which count but cannot be counted, as shown by Professor Ramarao, the Einstein's theory. So this is one area where you may not be able to quantify to a main extent. But then there are other ways to evaluate. There would be other areas where you can have, but one thing is that the business schools education should prepare the graduates with a mindset to serve the society, should be able to do something beyond their job and other things. And it is there we will be looking forward what they have been doing after graduation for the society. You'll have to be tracking this, it's difficult to keep track, but there should be some idea about this. Thank you very much for a very important question. Operationalizing the concept and including in our evaluation criteria, we'll have to work, and we have to perhaps give you solutions how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was one more question.
Really, I mean, what I would do is to actually share some of my experience, if that is of any value to you. Back at the business school, somewhere in the 2010, we were at NMIMS, we were debating on this aspect. And at that time, we had not as yet entered the ACCREDITATIon process. Let me tell you, we had not entered the ACCREDITATIon process. But the question in my mind was that, look, we have a mission statement of the business school, which boldly talks about the socially sensitive business manager. So there was a faculty meeting of the business school, and the dean was there. I had been invited there. That was perhaps the very first meeting of the dean who had just come in. So he wanted me also there to introduce him and also to talk about some of my thoughts in terms of where the business school should really head for. And I really talked about this aspect. I said that, look, socially sensitive business manager is a lovely word, but how are we doing it? What is it that we are doing? It's a beautiful words, these beautiful words in our mission statement. But what is it? How do we demonstrate? So various ideas came. So we had one of our faculty colleagues who was actually from the Center for Social Enterprise.
And she came up with the idea that, sir, why not we create a civic engagement program wherein every student of the MBA program and the faculty, whoever is interested, should participate in it. Student, faculty essentially as a guide, faculty essentially as a mentor. And the students would actually do some of the civic programs. It was, so we got all excited about it, and obviously the whole scheme was drawn up. Initially, it started off as a 3-week within term an engagement. So in the third term, we said the third term would begin only after the student would have finished a 3-week civic engagement program. Now that would be in Dharavi, for example, that would be in some of the slums of Bombay, that could be in the area of Girl Child and stuff like that. Emboldened by that approach that happened, this got shifted towards the summer break because the business school was finding it difficult to really give 3 weeks within the 2-year program. And so I could see the dean's predicaments that were there. And then he said, why don't we sort of take it to the 2-month summer break, of which first 4 months would be essentially in this area of social enterprise. So we did projects across India. Students did the projects in their home districts. District collectors got involved in it. We had police officers getting involved in it. We had the social workers getting involved in it. We had the NGOs getting involved in it. And after about 5 years, we decided to, because ultimately at the end, they were coming up with the project reports, which were evaluated by the faculty, as also by the mentors from the NGOs whom we appointed. And they would evaluate it. Corporates were involved in this for project because the corporates were also looked at it essentially to fulfill their CSR kind of commitment. They found that this was a beautiful way of getting the MBA students to work on it. And it just simply went on. And later, it just simply got carried in our BBA program. It got carried in our engineering program. It got carried at our campuses. And consequently, the kind of work that we were getting was phenomenal. After about 5 or 6 years of this work and the projects, the business school decided to create a volume of what the work had happened, showcase the work of some of the works of the students. That was called an anthology itself. What was done and what was not yet done. Agenda fulfilled and agenda remaining to be fulfilled. And this, we presented it to Niti Aayog. We presented it to the government of India in various ministries itself. We sent it to the UGC for consideration. And this became a case study in the AACSB accreditation. And that case study actually won the award from ACCREDITATION also. But that was one part. The second part was in terms of the research impact. That was another part. And to me, one part was the impact, obviously. What was the impact? Where are you publishing? In ABDC journal, where, anything like that. So that was a very common kind of way of looking at it. To me, what was critical was, what is the citation impact? How many of your papers are getting cited by others? Because if they are getting cited by others, then the work that you are carrying on really have a meaning to that. And therefore, I said that look, start looking for the citation index of the journal itself, not just simply the impact, or the rank, the rating like the ABDC, but this part of it. Again, this became an important kind of a parameter that went in the AACSB accreditation. So this is where I think whatever we were able to do at MIMS Business School and within the university, when I was the Vice Chancellor, this is what happened. If this is of any value to you all, you're more than welcome to replicate it, improve it, further build on it. That would only be meaning that we all are contributing to creating solutions for India. Thank you.
The moment, any questions from you, observations, suggestions?
No, I was patiently listening to the deliberations of all these luminaries, and I was educating myself. And I think I'm kind of in agreement with Professor Dhar when he mentioned that the research, especially the paid research, is lacking
It's 2 p.m. Hope you're having a good day. Want to go for a walk?
That's my CD talking, not me. Okay. I would agree to that. That's kind of lacking in various institutions. And as far as IBA is concerned, and when you were saying that I think they were also talking about, someone was talking about the process in which we take our students. I mean, if we are ensuring quality there. So that is one issue that we have been very successfully maintaining, and the adherence to the strict principles was being mentioned a couple of times. So that is something being practiced at IBA all throughout. So from my experience, I can tell that pays off, and that has been a significant, I would say, significant determinant in what we have succeeded over the years in Bangladesh at IBA. So that's another thing that I would like to mention here. And I was also listening to the various accreditations that are available, and the institutions they keep on struggling which one to go for, and is there an end to it? So I think this is again the case of branding and marketing, and how it has been viewed at. So probably the Westerners started it off earlier, and their brands got promoted more, so hence they're being sought after, and we kind of want their endorsement to get a better collaboration or a better standing, etc. So it's time enough for us to also try and brand ourselves. And I would like to bring in an analogy here. Like they say, Intel was a processor. It was not an end product. It was a B2B product. But they promoted it in such a manner that it said Intel inside. So the consumer started asking for it. That if the computer has got an Intel processor, then it means it's a good one. So I think SAQS needs to be promoted in a manner so that the demands comes from the stakeholders, be it the students, be it the employers, that if this institution is SAQS accredited, that means it has got the quality. And these are a few remarks that when I was listening, and I was also having little difficulty hearing everybody because the microphone was at times, not in a proper place. So some of us online did have some difficulty hearing you all. But in general, it was a fantastic opportunity for me to hear from all of you. Not every time we get to hear from you, and it was such an with such an experience that you have, a collective experience in this room could be close to 1,000 years, and that is something very interesting to have, and we all probably must have enriched ourselves by that. With these few words, I would like to conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohan, for your words of encouragement. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank all of you for your participation today. And in a sense, providing us also some encouragement for whatever we are trying to say and propagate to you. I must acknowledge, just as we are talking about continuous improvement in the institutions, the accreditation systems and processes also have to subject themselves to the same discipline. And we try to do it. Sometimes progress is slow, but I would like to mention that we are once again starting the process of review of our parameters which are important, the metrics that we use, if we have those, or we are looking at qualitative assistance, and how do we go ahead. But I want to only ask one question to you all who are present here. Do you have a practice of an annual or a biannual or a 3-year medical checkup? So maybe 5 years medical checkup. May I also ask yourself the question, why do you do it? And not once why, but 5 times why. So please understand that re-accreditation perhaps is more important than the original accreditation. Because we may be meeting some minimal requirement. But what is required in the context of quality improvement is the higher benchmarks. That is what enables us to justify our existence. I mentioned to you, tomorrow will be better. And I would also like to quote another favorite of my quotes, once again borrowed from Zen philosophy. Climb to the top of the mountain and then climb higher. Thank you very much for patiently listening to us, encouraging us in our search for quality improvement in management education. And we look forward to welcome you all in some way or the other participating in this association. Thank you very much and good day. And please join for lunch.
I'm Ganesh. I have the honor and pleasure to give this vote of thanks. I thank most sincerely the esteemed panelists, namely Professor Muhammad Abdul Momen, Director, IBA, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh, and President AMDISA as well. Professor Abdullah, Vice Chancellor, IUBAT, Dhaka, Bangladesh, and past President of AMDISA. Thank you, sir. Dr. M. Ram Mohan Rao, former Dean, ISB, Hyderabad, and former Chairman, AMDISA SAQS Accreditation Awarding Committee, and Professor Rajul Saxena, former Vice Chancellor, NMIMS Mumbai, and former Executive Board member of AMDISA as well. Dr. Christophe Perez, Director, International Projects, EFMD, Belgium, who participated online. Dr. H. Kalro, former Director, IM Kozhikode, and Chairman, AMDISA SAQS Committee. Thank you very much, sir, all the panelists once again, and all distinguished participants from business schools across South Asia who are participating virtually and physically here for taking out their valuable time and contributing on the theme, which today is very important, a necessity of the day-to-days. I also thank the staff of AMDISA who have worked relentlessly to make this event glitch-free. I would also thank the AV team working very hardly here. Thanks are also due to the hotel Novotel staff for their very enthusiastic support. In particular, I would like to thank Pranay Roy Chaudhary, sales manager of this hotel. Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time and participating here. And lunch is ready, just outside the room. Thank you very much once again.